And I wondered, do you pay much attention to your legacy as a wrestler and a performer? You know, whether it was the Wyatt family or the Rock at WrestleMania being a master of a Rubik's cube or a giant spider that was never actually introduced. But do you pay much attention to the idea of legacy as a performer, and what does it mean to you if you do?
No, not at all. I go out, you're given an opportunity, you do it to the best of your ability. It's a job. And when all said's and done, you gave whatever you could at that moment and that day the best you could, and you forget about it. Fortunate, to have been able to make a living doing that for so long and still continue to make a living doing it. But like, as far as like legacies and all that, I don't get caught up in that because it's a job, and I do it to my ability. And then when I'm done with the job, I don't go home and act like that character at home. I'm
Yeah.
I'm just Joe, I'm just dad, I'm just husband. It's weird when they talk about legacy, because if people start believing in their own hype, like it's weird to me.
It's an interesting point you make, and I suppose that moves me on to a question now, a little bit of a word association, really, and success, which I guess you can lump in with legacy and not. But do you think about success in the same way as you do legacy? Does it not register with you? Does it register with you? Is there? I know that you've said in other interviews there's more you wish you could have done with your character in WWE, for example. But success in general, Joseph, what does that mean to you?
Success in wrestling, I think, is being on the show,
Okay.
being a constant staple of the show. And to that degree, yeah, I was successful. I was on when I wasn't hurt. I was on every week. So to me, that's a sign of success, being successful, whether or not I had wins, losses, or just had a backstage segment involving some weird spider. I did everything to the best of my ability, but I was successful because I maintained that screen presence, and I was a character that was needed for every show. And to me, that's a sign of success, because there's not a lot of time on these shows to get everybody on.
That's true.
So that right there is telling them that they trusted you enough to put you on for whatever time period, for however many years you did it. So to me, that's a success. As far as other avenues, you have goals. You have goals, and if you reach those goals, no matter how long it takes, that's success. When you finally reach that goal after whatever, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, you keep reaching and striving for the next thing, the next goal, and don't give up, and then you will succeed.
Yeah, you mentioned some of those goals as well. You've talked about your acting now, and I do want to go into that in more depth. But you've talked about connecting emotionally with some of these characters in some of these shows you've been in, and really being able to share that emotional vulnerability on Goes to the Ozarks, for example, there, and obviously Mayor of Kingstown is another one. When you say goals, are you pushing for more of that acting, more of that connection with those types of roles? Or have I misinterpreted that? Is that what when you talk about goals, that's what you want?
Well, I'm pushing for that. I'm actors, it's a weird thing of being in the right place at the right time, connections, working on your craft, taking acting lessons, being ready emotionally. But the fact is, like, you might do all these auditions, and it's not on you. You might be okay for that part, but there's so many other factors that go into casting and whatnot. Your goal is to just get seen, get in a room, and if you do get the part, do the part to the best of your ability by putting in the work to explore that character and to feel those emotions, and by having yourself open, emotionally to, put on the performance, so it doesn't, you don't want to seem fake. You don't want it to seem forced. You want it to seem real. And the way it seems real is by living those emotions on screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I love about it. That's a goal I have. And I feel like I'm 6'8", over 300 pounds. I don't see a lot of people like me on television regularly. I don't see them playing the best friend of a guy. I don't see them playing the dad. I see them playing the tough biker. I see them playing just just stereotypes of what people that look at me think I would be like. And that's not what I want to play. I want to play people that are like me, that have all these different emotions. It's okay to cry. It's okay to get upset. It's okay to apologize. I want to see these different layers. It's okay to have to go through heartbreak. It's okay to have to, pick yourself up and keep moving. It's like, these are things everybody deals with. And I want to see that on the screen. And those are the dream roles for me. Roles where I'm not typecast, but I'm basically opposite of type put into a role.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real challenge. I always wanted to be an actor when I was younger, but because I have cerebral palsy, I was always kind of made the old guy, or the or someone with a disability or a difference. And actually hearing you talk about it, it's kind of made me revamp it, because it's all about, again, there are so many factors as to why you might not get cast. I used to love performing, and I still do, and clearly you love that performance. And I watched your show reel, which has made me want to go watch the movie now for Ghost of Ozarks, where you play William, and there was a brief part in that where you show real emotion, and I was like, I wonder, is it easy for you to put yourself in that? You mentioned, you use music and things, but when you have to go and do a scene like that, if you're experiencing loss or anything of that nature, what is it easy for you to, would it be as simple as if I just went like that? Is it like that, or is it really much harder for you to do that, if you understand what I'm saying?
I mean, and you've acted before, you know, everyone has their own process to get to a certain point. But when the director yells action, you're living that moment. When you open your eyes, everything that happened up to that moment, you can prepare for, and you're emotionally ready. But once they yell action, you're there, you're living it. And you don't know what you're going to do, because you can't control emotion. You can't. You can get to an emotional point, but then when it's time to go, it's time to go. And especially with William, I had never experienced like loss like that of anybody close to me in my life before we filmed. So this character, and I'll do a spoiler because people didn't watch it, loses his sister, who he felt guilty to, because he's always protected her, and it's been there for her, and at this moment he wasn't there, and she dies, and this is him having to find that out and feel that guilt, that remorse. And what was funny is I'd never felt these emotions, and I couldn't shut it off when they yelled cut. Like, when we filmed it, like, I broke down, and I broke down because I thought I lost my sister. And what's funny and weird in my head was, fast forward, and it might have been a year later, and that's when Brodie Lee, my tag team partner with WWE, and he had passed away. And it was weird, because those same emotions that were fake in front of the camera, I was really feeling. And it was so weird to me that I had felt this before I'd ever experienced loss. And to me, it freaked me out a little bit, that you can tap into these emotions. And it made me love acting more, due to the fact that, like, you can experience all these things in your head. It freaked me out in the fact that, like, everything in my head, it just clicks, and it's like, if you do the work, you're rewarded, with these emotions. And it made me fall in love with the art of acting, because it's really weird to live emotions without really living them.
I think it's an interesting point, because I remember watching, obviously I saw that clip, and I also saw on the Brodie Lee tribute, people have talked to you about this many times on AEW, and you could see the emotion. And clearly, obviously, that's not going to be fake, but you can certainly tell. You've got to, it's that expressive nature of your face and things like that. And, that's, it's an expressive face you have. And I think that's, you can tell when it means something, and you could tell that emotion was there. And I think that's a beautiful skill. It's a beautiful skill to have, to be able to do that, to really, because you really felt it. I remember watching that and watching you come out on the AEW show, and I was like, I remember, it's an emotional thing. And to be able to share that emotion with a much wider audience, that's quite beautiful. I think that's really cool.
It's not a fun place to be in your, and grieving, it sucks, and everyone deals with grief in different ways. And unfortunately for me, people see how I because I put myself out there to grieve. But it was, that show specifically was during COVID, and there's no funerals happening at that time. And there's no wakes, there's no saying goodbye with loved ones. And everyone that was backstage, his wife, his kids, like, that was something I needed. That was something I really needed at that time. Just to be able to slowly move on with him on my mind, around everybody that loved him.
It was a really beautiful moment. As I say, as a fan, as somebody watching that, just for you to kind of allow yourself, or just kind of let that emotion out. It's not, it's a great thing to be able to, even in such difficult times, be able to share that with people. And that kind of moves me to my next question. You've talked about, in previous interviews and also here, wanting to kind of subvert the expectation of the big hulking guy on camera, whether that's in movies or in wrestling. And I wonder, if I ask you directly, Joseph, are you comfortable with if you have to cry, if you have to show that emotion to somebody, is that something that you have always been comfortable with, or have you had to find that through another aspect of your life, find that emotional connection, if that makes sense?
No, that's not something that was easy for me. Okay. And my acting coach helped me tremendously, just to get to the points when I did film Ghost of the Ozarks, of being able to be available emotionally. And that's not something that's easy, to put yourself out there for anybody. And it took work, but I think once I get to that point, there's no turning back, and I'm okay with it. But yeah, I've always pretty much tried to hide my emotions, and I think it goes back to not wanting to be this big tough guy, because you're supposed to hold it all in and deal with it, like I don't know, when you're growing up, I grew up in the 80s, they would say grow up like a man, and man up. And like, that's a bunch of crap. Like, if you hold it in, then how's anybody going to know that you need help? How's anybody going to know that you need somebody, because people generally want to shower you with love. And if you're holding that in, no one knows you're hurting. No one knows you have anything going on. So if you have anything going on in your life, ask for help. You know what I mean? Because that's gonna, if you hold all this stuff in, like, you're gonna pop, and people need help. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful, it's a beautiful kind of point you make, and I wonder, because I was actually going to ask you this a little bit later on around, in your WWE career, that you were, your character and your vibe was central to this mask, and to this, this kind of the mask that was so central to the Wyatt family, but also your later character. And I wonder, was that part of your lore? Did you create this kind of lore around the Erick Rowan character to have this mask? And did you ever want to pull it down? Was there ever, you know, I remember you said there was unfinished business, you know, with a character that you wanted to, you know, you wanted to explore more. Was there ever a desire to because it was part of you Bludgeon Brothers persona, it was part of the Wyatt Family persona. Was there a desire to pull it down and show some of that emotion on wrestling TV each week?
Oh, definitely. And any character you have the whole backstory. You have reasons for doing anything. No matter what the storyline is, the Erick Rowan character always had this thing in my head of reasons, whether or not they told me or not, of why the character did certain things. And it's really funny if you think about it, because it's like, I wore the mask and they wanted me to be quiet. But I wore the mask because when I took it off, people would look at me and think a certain thing about me. Where if I put it on, hey, maybe these kids won't be scared. It made me scarier. In the fact that it would, like, adults were more like, well, why is he not talking and what's wrong with him? But in my head, I'm like, everyone make fun of me because I take my mask off. Everybody makes fun of me because they think I'm this big, giant, deformed thing that walks around. So I put the mask on to try to shelter everything out and hold everything in, which was the whole point of needing the Wyatt family and needing a cult to be a part of. So then when you separate from that cult, you're kind of like a lost sheep, and you're trying to find your way in the world. So then it would connect all these different dots. You talked about a Rubik's Cube and how this guy might have been a genius, but nobody ever said the guy was a genius. It was just one backstage interviewer who said, hey, he's doing a Rubik's Cube. He's a genius. It took me 4 or 5 weeks to beat the Rubik's Cube. No more of a genius than anybody else. But because the interview said it, to me, I wasn't a genius. I was just this guy trying to fit in.
Yeah.
What better way to fit in than with the Rubik's Cube? So then you just keep going through all these different layers, and then Bludgeon Brothers, and I remember I did the stuff with Bryan where I took the mask off finally to try to fit in. But was I really trying to fit in, or was I just trying to care about the environment with the only person I could find that would want to talk to me?
Yeah, there's a layer there as well. Yeah. Joseph.
So then you fast forward to the hierarchy of whatever happened, where I turn on Bryan and I fight with Roman, because I was sick of being in the background because nobody understood who I was. And now I'm finally talking and I'm telling people who I am.
Yeah.
I am smart. I am worth something. I'm just like all of you. I'm basically that character I've always wanted to play. And then whatever, we go back and tell you to be quiet. Then you got to have a pet. And in my head, I always had this thing in my head where I was like, well, what do I have? Oh, well, if you try to kill a guy, which is what the character tried to do, I was like, he would, instead of going to jail, well, what would the cops make him do? Probably get a therapy pet. So in my head, even though nobody told me, that whole thing I always had was going to be some sort of therapy pet that would eventually die and cause me to get unhinged, show that emotion, and continue on with the storyline. Unfortunately, COVID happened, but
yeah,
that's just a short 9-year journey. But there's always motivations in your head, whether or not you have time on these scripted shows to show it, because obviously it's not written like a regular television show. But to me, it was always fun to play that character.
Yeah, I always thought there was so much more to it, and I do want to kind of touch on quickly about 4 or 5 more questions for you, Joseph. I think is there anything, because you've talked about what would have happened? I believe it was supposed to be a sewer rat, and things like that. In your head, if you could write this down, because I remember you said you used to write pitches to Paul Heyman, and to take to Vince and stuff, and I wonder, if you could write the storybook of this character, the lore of Erick Rowan, whether you went back to WWE or Erick Redbeard in AEW, what would you have done? If you could give me, obviously, I appreciate there's only a certain amount of time, but if in an ideal world, if you were to write a short story of that character, what would it have looked like? What would the end of that story be, if you have an idea?
I think the end of that story would him being accepted for who he is,
Mm.
for him to be able to be himself. He's a bit psychotic. He talks to masks. He belongs in a mental institution, really.
Mm-hmm.
But he believes himself to be this functioning member of society. And he believes that everybody else is wronging him and he's always in the right.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's a scary guy to be a professional wrestler, because you never know what he's going to do. Yeah. And it could take so many different turns. Yeah. And he could be happy, your best friend 1 second, and then 2 seconds later, he'd want to maul you for talking bad about his pet spider or his pet cat or whatever. It's a strangely unique character because it's not the norm. It's not the normal. I'm going to lace up my boots. I'm going to put on my. But he's like a guy that. So many of us have different issues going on. He's a guy that could probably have these issues resolved if somebody sits down and interventions with him, and that would be interesting too. What would that character look like if he finally gets some help? Yeah. Would I cut my beard? Would I wear a suit? Like, would I want to be like a higher up, a commentator? Like, who knows? There's so many different things and avenues and storylines you could do with that character, because that's what I love about the unhinged kind of Erick Rowan character, Erick Redbeard character. Mm. You know, it's like the guy sitting next to you at a metal show, and the next second he's punching some guy in the pit, getting kicked out of the show. Well, why did he do that? I don't know. The guy accidentally pushed up against him, made him spill his drink.
Yeah, it can switch in a second. I do hope that story, you know, can be told, you know, going forward in your career, because I think that's fascinating. I really wanted to ask you this as an actor as well as a wrestler. Do you think that element of showmanship and surrealism that the Undertaker brought in, and that you guys had as the Wyatt family, Bray's more recent stuff, the White Rabbit, all of that stuff, I have to ask you, Joseph, do you think that's dead? Surrealism, showmanship, almost acting performance, storytelling. You know, I don't know. A lot of people sort of say, you know, if a story takes too long, that it's boring. Because obviously you mentioned TV only has a certain amount of time, but other people say our generation is super impatient. We want everything now. So, sorry, back to my original question. Do you think that element of showmanship, storytelling, almost performance, acting with gimmicks and stories like The Undertaker's, like Wyndham's, like Bray's, and like what you had with the Wyatt family, do you think that is dead now, or is dead too much of an extreme word?
No, I don't. And I think that, yeah, people's attention spans are getting shorter. And with professional wrestling, like, you have a 2-3 hour show. I mean, I don't want to watch a show of just wrestling. I don't. I'm going to get burnt out. If I watch 3 hours of just nonstop matches, I'm burnt out. Why would I ever want to watch a pay-per-view? Why would I ever want to watch like any of that if I'm seeing it free every week? You need these builds, and you need people to get talking. Like, yeah, you can put matches together, but at least give those people 30 to 45 seconds before, after, pre-tape, something that happens backstage to continue a different story while they go out and wrestle another match. Or I'm always a fan of like having the characters do commentary. And then they might get involved in the guy's match, which further sets up a feud. It's, to me, that's the interesting stuff in wrestling. If it's just match after match after match, it's like you got to have one loser, one winner. It just gets so monotonous, and you know, which is funny because I'm a fan of wrestling, but I can't watch a wrestling show of just wrestling. I need that soap opera. I need that. And that's what gets people behind these characters. Otherwise, it's just like, yeah, I'm a really good professional wrestler, and you can, there's so many different performers on television. Not everybody can be just the best professional wrestler. You need to have all these different characters to get people invested, because yeah, you're going to have really good professional wrestling matches regardless, even from the characters that don't say they're the best professional wrestler. So to me, I love a show that's well-rounded, has comedy, has drama, has cliffhangers. Like, there's enough room on shows for everything.
Yeah.
And then you're going to a larger audience. Yeah, some people are not going to like the comedy. Some people are not going to like the drama or the cliffhangers, but they're going to stick around for the wrestling, because when the performers are allowed a chance to actually put together 15-20 minutes for a match, it's going to be entertaining and it's going to be meaningful. But if you do it all the time, it's just, I've seen 6 matches tonight. Why do I want to watch another one?
You're trying to break that pace up. You're trying to create something, something else, something a little bit more magical in there. And that's what I wanted to touch on as well. Like I say, as we start rounding up, was that you had these, like, even when you're not wrestling, like, you're posting cryptic pictures of the rabbit mask or whatever it may be on social media. You also had those vignettes, that I don't think we ever saw, but they were released on social media, some of the mask stuff you had. And I wonder how important is, even though we've not seen it yet, even though we've not seen that story, Erick Redbeard, Erick Rowan finish up, how important is maintaining the lore of that character to you, because you keep posting these cool images, cool videos. Is that because there's a passion for this character and a lore that you've created, a bit like the Wyatt family, a bit like what Bray's been able to do as well, I suppose?
I think it just has to do with me. That character is whenever I wrestle, that character is part of me, whether or not I wear a mask, whether or not I have these metal shirts on. That character is always a part of me. Whether it's the Erick Rowan character, the Erick Redbeard character, to me, they're exactly the same person. It's no different than Christian and Christian Cage. He's the same guy, So as far as like images or whatever, it's the same thing. It's like, to me, it's like, I don't know. Social media is just a weird tool. It's weird, and it's funny because it's like, yeah, if something comes out that I'm doing, like, I'll put it out there, but like, it's funny sometimes because it's like, I'll just write down a little something and people are like, oh, what's that? And it's like, no, it's amazing that people care enough to look.
Yeah.
I just don't get social media. I never did. I think when we started with WWE, I barely ever used it, because why would I have had a Twitter? But in this day and age, you kind of need it to promote things you're doing, or keep in contact with different people you've met. Yeah, it's obviously an interesting tool for the future, and it obviously is something that gets seen instantaneous. And yeah, but as far as like why I do certain things or post certain things, I don't know. Who knows, man? I can't say.
Less cryptic than one might think, but yeah, they're always really cool. I always thought they were really cool. 3 more. We're gonna do 2 plug-in questions, and one I'm not gonna make you choose, although it sounds like I'm gonna make you choose. What are the things you prefer about the working on WWE and AEW television to when you're on an acting set, and vice versa? Are there transferable skills? Well, clearly there are transferable skills. That's an obvious question. But do you prefer acting? Do you find it more comfortable to act on an acting set, or do you like what I would interpret as a fan, the buzz of weekly television, Joseph? it sounds like I'm making you pick between acting and wrestling, and I appreciate that. But are there things that you prefer about either medium?
I mean, in both medium that involves skills of acting. I mean,
Yeah,
wrestling is obviously a live
yes.
theater setting,
Yes.
basically. I enjoy the intimacy of acting. You know, the close sets, it kind of reminds me and gives me like I don't know, people always talk about the high you get when you wrestle, the feeling of like performing in front of a live crowd. So like when it's a closed set and like it's a high pressure scene, because you know a lot of people, it's been a 12-hour day and they have all these people on set. It's time to perform the scene. It's high pressure, and it's that same kind of high I get when I perform in front of a pay-per-view audience, because like you can't really replicate that feeling. With wrestling, I love the high pressure situations of pay-per-views and just live television and hitting your times, and like there's nothing like that. Or coming out in front of a live crowd where you don't know how they're going to react to you. They might love you one day, hate you the next. Like who knows? It's just, but it's the character. It's not like they're booing you as a person.
Yeah.
Which
it's a character.
But yeah, I do know that, you know, I still love wrestling as much as I'm pursuing the acting, but like I would say I can't do it for more than 10 more years. Like I don't see myself in my mid 50s still taking constant bumps. Not that guys in their mid 50s still take a lot of bumps. It's just, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. You can't make somebody choose which one they enjoy. I enjoy them both, but for different reasons.
Yeah. You get to play the character, but you also get to access that emotion, which is it's a great skill for sure. It's a great skill. Joseph, to wind us down then, and thank you so much for your insight as well. I've really appreciated this chat. I've taken a lot from it for my own experience as well. Obviously, we're in the UK, and you have been over to the UK for all of wrestling, and you talked about your love of Brodie with Bryan and things like that, which is a cool memory, I'm sure. But do you have any memories that you attach to the UK, and also a message for people that obviously have supported you and will continue to do so over here?
Memories of the UK.
I put you on the spot, haven't I? Sorry.
I mean, last December I went and saw The Cure in London, and it was a fantastic show. Unfortunately, your guys' strikes with the subway is a headache. But no, I love the UK. The crowds are always great wrestling crowds, and that's partly because they barely ever come over there. And I think, was it AEW is finally coming for a huge show, which it should be fantastic for any wrestling fan, just because it'll be, I'm sure they'll throw out, every stop they can, get every, name that they have on their show, bring out any kind of like unsuspecting names that they can from, like probably Hall of Famers or just the past. And I'm sure it'll be fantastic. And I saw that it was the Money in the Bank's there, so they're finally getting some pay-per-views, which they deserve. But yeah, man. I do enjoy the English breakfast. It's
class.
Class.
English breakfast and The Cure.
Memories. Yeah, it's just like the first one I thought about was The Cure. A great memory. But as far as wrestling, yeah, man. I think London was, or Manchester or London was when I first got told I had to carry the cage. So not the greatest day, but
yeah. Fair enough. Well, we hope to see you over here again soon. I'm very excited for the future of your character and your acting career, Joseph. I'm going to leave it to you now to finish us off. So, is there anything I've missed? Have I done my job properly? is there anything you'd like to plug and promote before we finish? Anything you've got coming up or anything you want to share?
You've done your job great, which kudos to you, and clapping I am doing. But you can check me out on Netflix on the latest season of I Think You Should Leave. I did a fun skit over there with Proposal Park, where I play a character named Toilet Truck, so check that out. Otherwise, check out my social medias at Erick Redbeard, Twitter or Instagram, and you can check out those cryptic tweets that Dom is talking about, which I'll try to limit in the future. But no, just keep your eye out. You never know where I'm going to pop up, whether it be film or television or the wrestling world.
Fantastic. And yeah, very excited for it. And Joseph, thank you for making the time for me. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure. And honestly, I wish you the very best of luck as you continue on your career as an actor and a wrestler. It's been a pleasure watching you as a fan, and it's wonderful to sit with you. And thank you so much for your insight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.